Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting television show that is on FX. It has gained a lot of attention last year, and everyone knows the hot horror show that seems to get critically acclaimed from not only critics around the world but fans as well, and that is American Horror Story Season 2, Asylum. For those who don't really know what the plot of the story is, basically the gist of the plot is it's a story about three inmates who basically are locked up under very extraordinary circumstances, and basically the institution is called Briarcliff, and it's run by half the institution is run by church, and the other half is run by a mad doctor, which I'll get to in a minute. Excuse me. But basically the three inmates are Kit Walker, Grace, and then there's a reporter named Lana, and I will talk about them in a minute. But basically what the story is that it starts off as kind of like a legend, like a folk tale, where basically Briarcliff was burned down and thousands of inmates in the institution were burned down and killed, but they don't know how it got there. And how it starts off is basically Bloodyface seems to come back in the present, and there seems to be kind of like sort of like a supernatural thing. Is how is Bloodyface alive after so many years of Briarcliff being burned down? But they kind of are going into that. Basically, it's more the backstory, which is it takes you back into 1964, where basically Kit Walker, who plays by Evan Peters, who's very, very good in it, and he is basically in love with a woman named Alma, who is black, and basically they're kind of like in an interracial marriage. But what happens is that he's abducted by aliens, and then the aliens basically put a probe either in his neck or in his butt. I won't get too graphic. And he's locked up now for killing dozens of women, and he doesn't kind of understand how he got to this circumstance. All he knows is that he woke up naked and he was arrested, and he was basically near Alma's body, and basically what happened was she was brutally murdered and her skin was ripped off and her head was ripped off. But the thing was that he claims he didn't do it. So the fact is, what is basically happening here? Is he a victim of circumstance, or is he a sadistic murderer who's not facing the reality of his crimes? Now you have a woman named Grace, who is one of the other inmates who are trying to escape this mental institution, and she basically is a person who is a victim of incest, kills her stepmom, and kills her father because her father was basically sneaking in the room and doing stuff that I don't even think you want to know what was happening. But she couldn't take it anymore, and because she was molested, ended up killing her father. But she says that she's innocent because of the crime of the circumstance. And then you have Lana, the reporter, as I like to call her. She is basically a gay woman who wants to expose Bloodyface, but is locked up by a sadistic nun named Sister Jude, who basically feels, and excuse me, Sister Jude believes that because of her homosexuality, it's confusing her and she's not really a normal person. So she deliberately locks her up into her institution and basically treats her like all the other prisoners and tries to cure homosexuality through corporal punishment, shock therapy, and prayer. Now, the thing that I wanted to talk about is two things. Number one, where will this story take us at the very end? And this new episode, which was called I Am Anne Frank, which is a two-parter. Basically, what is happening now is that the mad doctor that I promised to get to, played by James Cromwell, he is brilliant in this show. He's basically a sadistic doctor who has a thing against women and a thing for experimentation. But there's so much going on with him because we don't know how he got to this institution, because basically father one of the monsignors who brought him in, played by Joseph Fiennes, he has a mystery behind him, because why is he using this sadistic doctor on inmates or on patients? And then you have Sister Jude, who is played by the brilliant Jessica Lange. She has a past where she hit a child and basically had a hit and run incident, as what we know so far, but we don't know, was it really a hit and run, or did she hide the body to prevent everyone from knowing that she's a murderer? Now, the big question of the day is very quite simply, like I said, where will this story take us now? Right now, the story is taking us where there's an inmate that's in jail, in the institution, named Anne Frank. We all know the legend of Anne Frank, but this particular person believes that she is Anne Frank, but of a later year. Basically, she never really died, but her father thought she was dead in Auschwitz. And what's happening now is she the person that is really Anne Frank, taking revenge for all the victims of Dr. Gruber? That's Dr. Auden, played by James Cromwell. And basically Dr. Gruber is his Nazi SS name. So really what's happening is this Nazi hunter really the Anne Frank, the famous Anne Frank from the book The Diary of Anne Frank? Or is this a Nazi hunter pretending to be Anne Frank to get into the hospital to take revenge for all the victims of Auschwitz? Now, this show, I do admit, you really have to follow it, because my wife and I were watching it, and I have to tell you, you can't really, this is one of those shows that you really have to follow the details, because a lot of the details of the story basically make the story for what it is. It's sort of like, it's almost like one of those character stories. And basically, when you have a character story, basically it does a lot of development. You kind of got an idea who Dr. Auden is, and who Kit Walker is, and who Grace is, and who Saint Jude is. And basically you have all these characters in this story, but the thing is that all these characters have a mystery and some kind of devious background about them. And I think that one of the biggest mysteries that I found fascinating was Kit Walker's story, because was he really a victim of alien abduction, or was he a victim of circumstance? Was he just a person, as basically Dr. Throsden, played by the great Zachary Quintos, is he trying to say, okay, you know what, I don't really believe you were abducted by aliens, I believe that you want to use this fantasy as a cover-up for your crimes, and you have to start telling the truth. Now, I personally believe, and I'm sure everybody will have an opinion, I personally believe he was abducted by aliens, because how is the chip moving around his neck, and how are there aliens inside the institution? More importantly, did the aliens put him in a circumstance to see how he would react to human behavior? Because let's really be honest. Do you really believe that this is a man who just woke up in the middle of this horrific scene, and it's basically, they never showed him getting locked up. We never seen him naked in the body. Basically, I truly believe that what happened was, after they put the probe in his neck, they kind of left him in a scenario where he is a serial killer. Now, this is just my personal opinion, of course, but the fact is that if he is a serial killer, he's very good in denial. But that is the great mystery about the show, is that I think we're so fascinated to know, is he really a victim of circumstance, or is he an alien experiment? And for those who are probably saying to themselves, well, this is a fantasy show, so you can't take it seriously. Of course not, because that's the whole thing about horror, is that it's a great entertainment show. But what I love about this show is that it is a very good mystery show, because the first season really dealt with a haunted house, and because Evan Peters was in the first season, the family that was living in the haunted house didn't realize that they were dead. So it was kind of different. In this scenario, we have to sort of think, well, okay, if Kit Walker is telling the truth, how is he going to be able to get out of this scenario? And if Lana is telling the truth about the fact that she's gay, and you know what, there's no problem with it, that gay is not a mental illness, that she has to get out of it. And if Grace is innocent of the crimes, even though she committed them, but she was defending herself, all these characters have problems getting out of this scenario. So the question is, how are they going to get out? And to tell you the truth, we'll have to see how the seasons go on. But definitely I'm excited about tonight's episode, because I think with tonight's episode, we're going to find out, is this woman really the famous Anne Frank? So far, we're finding out that exorcism is real. We're finding out that the devil is real and aliens are real. I wouldn't be surprised if Anne Frank is real. But I think it's more leaning towards the fact that this might be like some Nazi hunter who said whatever she had to say and basically got in to kill this Nazi conspirator, who was involved in these horrific crimes in Auschwitz. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on in tonight's part 2 episode called I Am Anne Frank. But definitely in closing, I will put it to you like this. If someone were to ask me, how will this show end? We already know that Briarcliff was burned down. The question was how. I believe in, if I had to give a quick scenario, either the aliens come to get Kit Walker and they take him out of space, causing the fire, because it seems like it's going towards that plot. We already see an alien inside the institution. There's a chip walking around. I believe that the institution will be burned down because a flying saucer will come get either the alien or Kit Walker. If it doesn't end that way, and we kind of see that, maybe it was one of the inmates or the one of the patients who burned it down, or Lana the reporter, then I'll guess that, it might have been her. But for the most part, it kind of is leading towards an alien thing from what I see. I have this feeling that at the end of episode 13, when we come to the very end of the season, I think that the aliens are going to come. They're going to see that the experiment didn't really work. They're going to either grab Kit Walker, bring him out of space, burn the whole place down, leaving Bloody Face, whoever the real Bloody Face is, going to kill people and never to be caught. Now, this is just a crazy scenario on my part, but I have that feeling it's going to end that way. So for the most part, I have to say that, again, a brilliant show. It is probably one of the top 5 best shows so far, but I do love the show, and it's very entertaining, and I hope that people give it a chance, because you have to watch it from episode 1 to kind of understand what's going on. But again, it's probably one of the best shows that FX has got going on, next to Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So hit me up with your comments. Tell me what you think. I'm very curious to know what you think of this season. Do you think that this is a great season? Do you think that it's a little boring? Do you think that, there's too much, there's not enough detail they need to explain? But I think, from my personal opinion, A+. This is a great show with great actors, with great subplots, and more importantly, I love the fact that it has a great mystery. And for the most important part is that when you watch the show for a mystery, and not only for a mystery, but a great horror entertainment. I think that because horror is coming back, you either watch the show and, it's a very violent, gory, and it has a lot of nudity and cursing, but you can also watch the show. Forget all that. Watch the show for the story, because it is very good. It's a very, very interesting and entertaining show, and I hope that people give it a chance. So hit me up with your comments. Tell me what you think. For the most part, I can't wait to see tonight's episode, and I hope that, by the end of the season, I hope that they don't leave us hung to dry. But like I said, kind of interesting to know where we're going with Kit Walker's story. So hit me up, tell me what you think. I hope that you all have a great night. Peace.